and welcome. We have a fun show for you tonight. I'm talking with Larry Long tonight. Larry was described by Studs Terkel as a true American troubadour. And he's had some other wonderful definitions of his work too, but he's the most eclectic man. He's a songwriter, a community organizer, a singer, an educator, a father, a grandfather. How do you describe yourself, Larry, when you're talking to someone you've just met and they say, what do you do?
Probably pretty close to what you said. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. I try to say that first, and then I work in education, through the arts and sing. Mm-hmm.
He not only sings here in Minnesota, but he sings all over the country and travels around the world. So he's quite an ambassador for Minnesota. You have a project that I think we'll start with, and then we'll kind of work backwards maybe in time a bit, Larry. But you've got a project now where you're working with elders in communities and then matching some of their work and ideas up with school children.
Correct.
And tell us more about it, because it's hard to describe.
Well, I work in 12 schools a year, and each school we honor from 3 to 4 elders. And the elders that we bring in are elders that reflect the demographics and the faces of the children in the classroom. And so through these elder stories, they come in and talk to the children for 30 minutes. And then the children...
One at a time, Larry?
Correct, one at a time. So there's a different elder for a different class. And then they'll speak for 30 minutes, and then the children will come up with 5 to 10 questions, but they can only ask one. And so then we help the children frame questions that are larger than yes or no answers. And they learn how to shake a hand, how to look someone in the eye, how to interview. And then everything is recorded and transcribed. And so it turns from spoken history to written history. And then from the transcript, we create narratives and songs in the first person. And then we have a big celebration at the school that honors all 3 or 4 of the elders of many nations. And then all of their family and friends come. So it becomes a way to build bridges between the generations and communities of culture.
Larry, you skipped over the part that to me seems like the hard part, the magic part, where you get 30 kids in a classroom to write a song with you. How does that happen?
Well, there's a bit of a mystery to it all, and but we all speak with a melody, and when an elder comes in and talks and gets interviewed, how the elder phrases the words and how the sentences are structured, there's a sense of a breath and a meter. So what we do is that we work on that breath and the meter of speech, and then we also look at we take the interview after it's been transcribed, and all the paragraphs are numbered. So a 1-hour interview will be about 10 pages, single-spaced. And then what the children do is that as they go through it and they find out what are the 3 to 4 major themes. Then they identify the themes within the paragraphs. Then we create timelines, so it has kind of a concrete sequential, as in a ballad. And then out of that, we begin to construct verses and rhyme. And I do come into the classes with melodies that I've come up with, but often, or sometimes those melodies will shift and change based upon the class. And then we go through the lyrics together and we talk about it, we discuss it. And then if there's 2 or 3 points of view towards how a line should go, we take a vote on it.
So very democratic.
Take a vote on it.
Are the kids elementary or junior high or high school?
Well, I tend to work, cognitive, learning and critical thinking around 4th grade.
Okay.
3rd grade at the lowest, and then I go all the way up, because I also work with college students and organizations. I work in faith-based groups from churches to synagogues. And so I work with all ages.
Do you find that the kids, when you think of just working with the kids, are most of them with you on this kind of a project, or do you have some drifters? I mean, I'm sure you have some drifters.
No, they have a very good time. I mean, it's really fun. It's really fun.
They get engaged.
And they have a real ownership of the songs.
It would be such a unique thing for most kids.
It's very unique because it's something they can own, and everybody has a chance to shine their light at the public celebrations. I mean, there's the narratives are broken down into 12 speaking parts. Plus, they walk the elders down the aisle, and they give them a rose. They give them a picture. Sometimes they even create story quilts. So you'll take a life story, and the children will do sketches, or elders will come in and even help them make quilts, and they'll wrap the elder in their life story. And then they sing the song for them. Everything is filmed, so every celebration has a DVD, and the children get free copies.
So they have a great sense of being creative and ownership, and what a win-win thing. I mean, the elders, I'm sure, are so boosted in terms of their sense of self-esteem. We're such a country that discards aging people quite often, and
you know, I say to the children, though, you know, in 4th grade, I say to them, you're an elder to students in 3rd grade. You know, the children are watching. The children are watching us, and those younger than us are watching us. And I say to them, if you make the right choices in your life, you in fact are an elder to those who are younger.
Did you grow up in a family, Larry, where there was high respect for elders in your family?
I mean, I was born in Des Moines, Iowa, and my father was a traveling salesman. He sold coffee, and my grandfather had a fish market in Des Moines. And then when I was probably in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and my father got transferred up to Minneapolis, and I grew up in St. Louis Park. But and my father passed away when I was 13, and my grandfather, in a way, became, you know, my surrogate father and mentor.
But he was back in Iowa.
He was back in Iowa, but I always returned to Iowa to work in the fish market. It was a small family business, and I really liked it. You know, I really loved working in the fish market and watching my grandfather skin fish, and also working with my uncles and aunts. So it was a very large Southern Baptist, you know, upbringing in Iowa that then brought me into St. Louis Park, into a predominantly Jewish community, which then really taught me the value of art and understanding diversity of thought and how much there is to learn out there.
The diversity theme has been weaving through your life, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Honoring diversity,
Yes.
being aware of diversity, helping us accept diversity. In your family, was that something that was respected a great deal? And also, in your family, did they encourage creativity? I mean, you're kind of at the high end of the scale for following a creative path. Were you supported in that by your mother as you went through the teen years after your dad died?
My mother, on my new recording, I have a song for my father and also a song for my mother. And my father passed, I said I was 13, and then my mother passed away in 2005, and I was with her when she passed. And my mother was always very supportive. She had a very deep, intuitive, spiritual part of herself. She really had a deep faith and a power far greater. And she passed that onto us. And I too, hold that as a sacred bundle, that she really taught us to believe that, God has a plan for us, and if we empty ourselves out, it will be filled by a power far greater. And she always respected the fact of the path I chose. And mind you, when I started writing music when I was probably 13, 14, around the time of my father's death. And then I made up my mind to take the path of Woody Guthrie, and I did, hopping freight trains, hitchhiking, and singing for farmers out on the power line with then Professor Paul Wellstone, and got to know him, and then for out on the picket lines, and really trying to bring a song into the needs of the people in times of great struggle.
When you were doing this, you were so young. Were you finding people receptive to your voice? I mean, not just your voice, your singing voice, but what you were saying and how you were putting your passion for the causes into song. Were people supportive, or were you just, going forward on your own?
Well, I would say both. A lot of people who lose a parent young cannot see themselves living beyond the years of their parent who died. So my father passed away at around 33. So I lived my life pretty hard and fast. And I didn't expect to live beyond 33, so I was really moving hard and trying to make a statement in my life. And I did. But then I get married around the age of my father's passing, and now
You didn't die.
No, I didn't die, and I'm almost 60, and so it's a different script. It's a different story. It's been the last 30 years have been a different journey than the journey of Woody. It's been more of the journey of who I am and where I need to go and what it is I need to do for my children and family.
So many people would probably love to follow their passion in terms of their interests and the causes they care about, but they don't do it. They don't do it for so many reasons. Why do you think you were brave enough to do it?
It's not as though I had a choice. In many ways, I knew at a young age what it is that I needed to do, and I simply followed that. And when there were moments when I said, "Oh, this is too much, I can't do this anymore," I was so miserable that staying on the path is part of one's bliss. And so it's really for, again, something much deeper than in some ways I'm not even sure I comprehend myself. But I never felt I had much of a choice in the matter, except, we have choices, do we go left or do we go right? Or do I spend time with this person and not with that person? So I think there's a bit of wisdom one begins to gather as one proceeds through one's life with trying to make the right choices.
In my leadership series, I always like to find out who people viewed as a mentor. And Pete Seeger comes to my mind. I'm guessing he might have been a mentor at one level for you.
Well, very big, and still is.
He's what, 92 now?
Right, and then I was invited to sing in Madison Square Gardens,
Right.
where I sang with Joan Baez for
for his 90th
Pete's
party,
90th.
right?
But you know how I
Which-
met Pete is an interesting story because, you know, through the course of singing for farmers, I was out in Appleton, Minnesota, and after singing for farmers trying to stop a high voltage power line, I got brought into the American Agriculture Movement strike office in Minnesota and met a man they all called the governor, and it was Governor Benson, who was the governor after Floyd B. Olson, farmer labor governor. And I came in singing, and he was such a wonderful man, very intelligent, reminded me of Samuel Clemens, his humor. And he said, "You remind me of Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie." And I said, "How do you know them?" And then he said, "Well, when I was governor." I said, "You were governor?" And he goes, "Yes, I was governor." And he said when the lumberjacks went on strike, he called out the National Guard on the company, and the lumberjacks won their strike. And then he called up Pete Seeger and told him about me. And
The
then
governor did.
Yeah, Elmer Benson did. And then I went on the tractorcade to Washington, D.C., you know, back in the 1979, 1980. And I get a phone call from Pete Seeger out of the blue in the strike office. And he talked about singing for striking dairy farmers in the Great Depression. And he invited me to his home. And
That
then,
must have been a dream come true to get that phone call.
I mean, really, I was more in love with Woody than Pete. I always thought, you know, Woody was kind of the more bare bones guy, and Pete was more lofty. But when I met him, I just fell madly in love with him. He was and still is a father figure to me in a very personal way. He's done so much through my life for encouragement, opening doors that would have never been opened.
One of those really turning points then in your life to make that connection.
It was a major turning point. And I think because, you know, in all fields, there's different choices one can make. And Pete Seeger chose a path of his calling, and it wasn't easy. But when you meet him, you know that this is a man who's happy. And that's the path that I've tried to stay on too, not the path of Pete Seeger, but my own path, which in fact parallels in many ways the path of Pete and Woody. And so I love the man dearly.
There was a great quote. Pete said, "I'd be proud to be known as the Larry Long of New York," when he was asked if you were the Pete Seeger of Minnesota. Isn't that just a, you know,
That was,
wonderful quote?
yeah, it sure was.
And how inspiring to have someone like that as your mentor, father figure, who has lived, you know, such a wonderful life and still is out there performing.
He's
at
vibrant,
90
yeah.
something. I mean, that's so inspiring, isn't it? What are your goals for the, you know, next few years? Do you break your life down, or is it really just following your intuition?
No, I mean, I have a pretty well organized life, and I'm an executive director of the nonprofit Community Celebration, and with the board of directors, and
that could just keep spreading and multiplying, I'm guessing,
It's-
if you let it.
my hope is, well, I've already begun locally and regionally to train in some artists to the Elders' Wisdom children's song work I do. It's transferable, and it also can be integrated into International Baccalaureate curriculum. Some graduate students are beginning to study the work. I've written close to 1,000 songs, and everything is in the digital domain. And so it's something to pass down either to the Smithsonian Institute or to the University of Minnesota or the Minnesota Historical Society. But my dream is this, you asked. You you know, the last 10 years, I got off the road to raise my children and to be very close so they would know me and I would know them. And now my children have grown and have a granddaughter, and I'm a grandfather. But, you know, I just completed my first full collection of songs in 10 years called Don't Stand Still. And
It's a great title, by the way.
and we'll be having, you know, many events for that. And I'm going to be stepping back out again as a performer and a songwriter across the country again, my hope. But with the work in schools, my dream is to really set up, you know, workshops regionally to begin to train in people around the country to this methodology. That you know, it could go back to St. Francis of Assisi. It's this, you know, the tradition of the troubadour goes back a long ways, and but I think what we've done in the schools is find a way to maybe institutionalize it where it can be really be put to use in order to meet criteria within curriculum, also to empower children to realize they're part of a community, to strengthen a mentorship even beyond the interview process with elders in the school. So I think we're on to something, and I just want to see it grow and flourish beyond me as one individual.
Nobody else is doing this that I know of in the country in this kind of structured way. Are there others with similar?
Well, there's many people working in the schools that are doing great work, like T. Michael Rambo. He does great work in the schools, and J.D. Steele is doing some great work chorally, and there's.
But in terms of mixing the elder piece with,
I think, you know, I'm the only person that I know that has kind of taken it to this step, where it's moved in terms of the elder youth intergenerational connection through the arts, where it's moved, you know, beyond a residency into something potentially much larger.
We are almost out of time.
No.
No. Time has gone too fast. But I want to.
Want more time.
We both do. We want to put on the screen your website so that people can learn more about your exciting career, Larry. And as you're looking at these websites, folks, firstcommunitycelebration.org and then larrylong.org, know that for those of you who are watching this interview, in April of 2011, there's a big, fun coming out party for your new CD on the 9th, right?
Right, at the Lorraine
At the Lorraine Theater.
With Robert Robinson and Tanya Hughes and J.D. Steele, Billy Peterson, and many others.
So if you're lucky enough to be hearing this now in April, check that out. And for those who are seeing it later, which will be a lot of people too, they can always find out what you're up to by going to your website, can't they?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. One last quick question. Your life has been so exciting and so purposeful. What's the hard part about it, Larry? Is there anything that just is something we don't see hearing this that makes it
The
tough?
hard part of it, I don't know. The hard part of it, I think being always present and always being present and always listening to others and to remain patient, and also to know who to listen to and who not, because whenever you know any of us move forward in a path, there's some friction because it does disturb, like a boat going across the water. It can create waves, and so it just to remain attentive enough to the needs of others around you as you proceed on your path, and also to know who to listen to, and
Those
whose
are
advice to take.
both important challenges, really. Well, thank you so much for coming down and talking with me about your work and your life. It's been great.
Well, thank you, Mary.
We are going to go out now listening to some of Larry's music, and some of the music you heard earlier during the interview is from his recent CD. So you may want to check that out at, I'm sure, any record store around. Thanks again, Larry. It's been
Thank you.
very fun. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.
When I was young, I could not speak. My tongue, it was too weak. When the teacher called my name, I tried to talk, but nothing came. From the good book my grandpa read, these words to me he said, take a look at all he did. Shine your light, don't keep it hid. The whole wide world, the whole wide world, the whole wide world depends on you. Out of pain there comes bliss. Guitar strings on your fingertips. You can dance, you can sing, you can soar without wings to where the condor and eagle meet, shooting clouds beneath your feet. Grab your dreams, don't give up, good for nothing, nothing but the whole